thieving witch. How dare you steal from us, you filthy rat. The words sliced through the air like a blade, sharp and venomous, as the store manager's face twisted in disgust. The crowd in the upscale boutique froze, their eyes darting toward the commotion. There, in the center of the room, stood Amara, a tall, elegant black woman with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that usually glimmered with warmth. The manager, a wiry man with a sneer permanently etched on his face, pointed an accusatory finger at her. We've been watching you. You think you can just waltz in here and take whatever you want? You people are all the same, always looking for a handout. Amara's heart pounded in her chest, the sound drowning out the murmurs of the onlookers. But the manager wasn't listening. He grabbed her arm, his grip bruising, and yanked her toward the security office. The cold metal of the handcuffs bit into her wrists as they restrained her, the humiliation burning like acid. The security guards rifled through her belongings, their hands rough and invasive. "Where is it?" he demanded, his voice dripping with contempt. "Where's the necklace you stole?" As she stepped out into the cold evening air, the weight of it all crashed down on her. Amara sat in the dimly lit cafe, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, the warmth doing little to calm the storm raging inside her. Her father leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly under his weight. "Amara," he began, his voice low and gravelly, "I've spent my life building something powerful, something that commands respect." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Tell me," she said again, her voice firmer this time, though her hands trembled slightly. "I'm not a businessman. I'm a mafia boss." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. "You're lying," she whispered, though even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. "I wish I were," he said, his voice tinged with something that might have been regret. "But the truth is, I left to protect you. This life, it's dangerous." Amara's mind raced, trying to process everything he was saying. "And you," he continued, his voice steady, "are my daughter." His words stung, but they also ignited something deep within her, a spark of defiance, of determination. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying," he replied, leaning forward, his eyes locking onto hers, "that it's time for you to take your place." Amara's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. Her father smiled, a slow, calculating smile that sent a shiver down her spine. "I want you to become who you were always meant to be," he said. "And if you want to survive, Amara, you need to be ready to fight." "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady, her resolve firm. Her father smiled, a slow, satisfied smile that sent a shiver down her spine. "Good," he said. "Because the real battle is just beginning." Amara stood in the shadows of the boutique, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. The cool night air brushed against her skin, but it did little to calm the fire burning within her. Her father's men flanked her, their presence a silent reminder of the power she now wielded. They were shadows themselves, their faces obscured, their movements precise and deliberate. They were waiting for her signal, waiting for her to take control. The manager was closing up for the night, his smug expression still etched on his face as he turned the key in the lock. He hummed a tune under his breath, completely unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon him. Amara watched him, her eyes narrowing as memories of the humiliation she had endured flashed through her mind. The way he had grabbed her arm, the way he had accused her in front of everyone, the way he had treated her like she was nothing. It had been weeks since that day, but the pain was still fresh, still raw. "Remember me?" Amara's voice cut through the silence like a blade, cold and sharp. The manager froze, his hand still on the key, his body stiffening as he turned to face her. His eyes widened in fear as he recognized her, the color draining from his face. For a moment, he seemed unable to speak, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You," he stammered, his voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" Amara stepped out of the shadows, her heels clicking against the pavement with a deliberate rhythm. She was dressed in black, her silhouette sleek and commanding, her presence undeniable. The manager took a step back, his bravado crumbling as he realized the gravity of the situation. He was no longer in control. She was. "You accused me of theft," she said, her voice low and steady, each word dripping with venom. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. You treated me like I was nothing. And now it's your turn to feel what that's like." The manager's eyes darted to the men behind her, his fear palpable. He raised his hands in a feeble attempt to placate her. I didn't mean, save it, Amara interrupted, her voice cutting through his excuses like a knife. You made your choice. Now you'll face the consequences. She nodded to the men behind her, and they moved forward with a swiftness that left no room for resistance. The manager's protests were cut short as they grabbed him, their grip firm and unyielding. He struggled, but it was futile. He was no match for them. Amara watched as they dragged him into the alley beside the boutique, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she would reclaim her power, her dignity. But as she stood there watching the scene unfold, she felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, satisfaction, but also a flicker of doubt. Was this who she wanted to be? Was this the path she wanted to take? The manager's cries echoed through the alley, but Amara didn't flinch. She had spent her life being pushed down, being told she wasn't good enough, being treated like she was invisible. But now she was the one in control. She was the one calling the shots. And for the first time she felt a sense of power, not just over the manager but over her own life. But as she turned away, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had done, she realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be dangerous, fraught with challenges and obstacles she couldn't even begin to imagine. But for the first time in her life she felt like she had a choice. She could continue down this path, embracing the darkness that came with it, or she could find another way. As she walked away, the city lights blurring through her unshed tears, she knew that the real battle wasn't against the manager, or even against the world. It was against herself. And she wasn't sure if she was ready to face it. But for now she had taken the first step. And that was enough. Amara stood on the balcony of her father's penthouse. The city sprawled out below her like a glittering tapestry of lights and shadows. The night air was cool against her skin, but it did little to soothe the storm raging inside her. Her hands gripped the railing tightly, her knuckles white as she stared out at the horizon. The events of the past few weeks played over and over in her mind like a broken record. The humiliation at the boutique, the confrontation with the manager, the revelation of her father's true identity. It all felt surreal, like a dream she couldn't wake up from. But it wasn't a dream. It was her reality now. And as much as she wanted to run from it, to go back to the life she had before, she knew that was impossible. She had crossed a line and there was no turning back. The sound of footsteps behind her pulled her from her thoughts. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Her father's presence was unmistakable, a heavy, commanding energy that filled the room even before he spoke. "You've done well," he said, his voice low and gravelly, the words carrying a weight that made her chest tighten. "But this is just the beginning, Amara. You've taken your first step, but the road ahead is long and dangerous. Are you ready for what comes next?" Amara didn't answer right away. She wasn't sure she had an answer. Ready? How could anyone be ready for something like this? She had spent her life trying to escape the shadows, trying to build a life that was normal, safe. But now she was being pulled into a world where nothing was safe, where every decision could mean life or death. And yet, there was a part of her that felt alive in a way she never had before. A part of her that thrived on the power, the control, the respect she now commanded. It was intoxicating, addictive. And it scared her. "I don't know," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready. But I don't think I have a choice, do I?" Her father stepped closer, his presence looming over her like a storm cloud. "There's always a choice, Amara. But some choices come with consequences. And if you choose to walk away now, those consequences could be deadly. Not just for you but for everyone you care about." His words hung in the air like a threat, heavy and unspoken. Amara's mind raced, thinking of her mother, her friends, the few people she had left in her life who mattered. Could she really risk their safety? Could she live with herself if something happened to them because of her? She turned to face him, her eyes searching his for answers she knew she wouldn't find. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What do you expect me to do?" Her father's expression softened, just slightly, but it was enough to make her chest ache. "I want you to become who you were always meant to be," he said. "You're my daughter, Amara. You have my blood in your veins. And that means you have the potential to be so much more than you've ever allowed yourself to be. But it's up to you to decide if you're willing to embrace that." Amara's breath caught in her throat. His words echoed in her mind, stirring something deep within her, a longing she had spent her life trying to suppress. A longing to be seen, to be respected, to be powerful. But at what cost? As if reading her thoughts, her father reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sleek phone. He handed it to her, his expression unreadable. "This is your lifeline," he said. "It's encrypted, untraceable. Only a few people have this number. If you're ever in trouble, if you ever need help, you call me. No questions asked. Amara took the phone, her fingers trembling as she wrapped them around the cool metal. It felt heavy in her hand, like a symbol of the life she was stepping into. A life of danger, of power, of secrets. But before she could say anything, her father's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening as he read the message. "I have to go," he said, his voice tight. "But remember, Amara, this is your choice. And whatever you decide, make sure it's a decision you can live with." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her alone on the balcony with her thoughts. The weight of his words pressed down on her, a heavy burden she wasn't sure she could carry. But as she looked out at the city, at the endless sea of lights and shadows, she realized that she didn't have to carry it alone. She had a choice. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she had the power to make it. But as she stood there, the phone clutched tightly in her hand, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and challenges she couldn't even begin to imagine. But for the first time she felt like she had a chance to take control of her life, to shape her own destiny. And as she turned away from the balcony, her resolve firm, she knew that whatever came next, she would face it head-on. Because she was no longer the woman who had been pushed down, humiliated, abandoned. She was Amara, the daughter of a mafia boss. And she was ready to claim her place in the world. But as she stepped back inside, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from her father. "There's one more thing you need to know," it read. "You're not just my daughter. You're my heir." Amara's breath caught in her throat. She had thought the revelations were over, but now she realized they were just beginning. The weight of his words settled over her like a cloak, heavy and unyielding. She was no longer just a pawn in his game. She was the future of his empire. And as she looked down at the phone, a strange sense of determination washed over her. The world had tried to break her, but it had only made her stronger. And now she was ready to take on whatever came next. Because she was Amara. And she was unstoppable.